Welcome to the Meet RX Success podcast. I'm Coach Kiki, and I'm a coach here at Meet RX as well as a member. In this video, I'm so happy to be sitting down with Travis, who shares that after being partially paralyzed and over-medicated, the carnivore diet gave him back his mobility and his life. Travis, I'm so happy for you that you were able to recover your health. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm really honored that you guys took the time to talk to me today to let me share my story with how this diet's really transformed my well-being and my quality of life.
Well, you are in a position here sharing your testimonial with us to help so many others who can look to the same good health and changes that you have. So Travis, why don't you start out by telling me, what did your health look like before you started this diet? And what did your diet look like before you came to carnivore?
So growing up, I always had a little bit of autoimmune issues. I'm a celiac. So I was diagnosed with that at birth. So that's always been kind of an underlined issue, but, pretty typical kid growing up, not really in the best of shape, not in the worst of shape, but not by any stretch a healthy, what I would refer to now as a healthy diet. It consisted of a lot of potatoes. It consisted of a lot of processed foods, sugars, soda, a lot more than I want to admit to. But it was pretty typical.
What did celiac look like for you when you were an infant and a child or a teen? Did you get flare-ups?
Oh, absolutely. So I have a pretty severe case of celiac, and my brother, who was sick at birth, that's how they found out what was wrong with him. And then they tested me and found out that I had it as well. Caused everything from just the most horrible stomach issues to having no energy and being in bed for quite some time if I got into something that I shouldn't have. So it was, and growing up, I'm 36 now, but growing up, people in the Midwest didn't really know a lot about celiac. So
absolutely, I'm sure.
There was no health food stores to go find stuff at that time. I can only imagine the problems my parents faced trying to find good nutrients for their kids, because it's so much easier now with the health food stores and the gluten-free items and stuff like that. But back then it was kind of unheard of.
And then did you see skin flare-ups from that? Were you
eczema,
underweight? Did you have dark rings under your eyes as celiac children do?
Yeah, a lot of joint issues as well. If I got into something, my joints would just naturally swell up. The energy levels were low, and you kind of almost always walked around in kind of a fog in your brain. And that's the best way I can explain that. It was just kind of everything was foggy all the time.
So take us forward a few years. You have this celiac. Of course, you're a kid growing up in America. You're eating everybody's whatever favorite or heavily advertised foods.
Oh, absolutely.
What changes did you continue to see in your health? Do you attribute them all to the celiac, or did new issues seem to come up?
I would have new issues here and there pop up, some little flare-ups if I got into something, because one of the big problems is a company that made a product that you're used to eating for 5 years decides to make a price cut and make cheaper ingredients and put in it, and they don't label it properly, and all of a sudden something you've been used to your whole life eating, you eat, and now all of a sudden you're sick, and just horribly sick. So it was a lot of trial and error to become a speed reader for ingredients across the board, because there was always something changing and trying to stay ahead of that.
It's so much work, right?
It is, especially for a kid growing up that should just be worrying about playing with his friends, having a good time. It made it a little difficult, but a lot of people have the misconception, oh, well, if you're celiac, you're not eating all this food, you're going to grow up healthy. No, when you're a kid, you find things to replace it with. Snickers, Cokes all the time. It's just something fast, easy at the gas station, and it just, those processed sugars. So now as I grew up, problems with blood sugar, blood pressure, all those started to climb as I got older and my metabolism started to slow down, and you get into a sedentary style of life, the problems start building up.
And this was in your 20s. So in your 20s, it almost sounds like you had the health problems of a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old.
Well, it wasn't quite to that degree, but it was starting to progress that way, for sure. And then here about 4 years ago is when it really, almost 4 years ago, that it really took a turn for the worse.
And what did that look like?
So I was overweight. I was in a sales position, so there wasn't a lot of exercise. It was kind of more of a sedimentary lifestyle. I was packing on weight, wasn't eating healthy, for sure wasn't getting the exercise that I needed. At my heaviest, I was about 209 pounds. And to put that in perspective, I am 5'9.5". So I am not a tall person at all. And all of a sudden one day, I went from being okay, having some issues here and there with my gut and stuff like that, to back pain in my low back that shot down through my legs. In fact, I thought it was sciatic issues, but because I hadn't experienced that before. And I got adjustments and medications and nothing was helping. And then within just a 4-day span, it went to not even hardly being able to use my legs to walk, to my arms, to my chest and breathing. And my wife, she took me into the hospital, and they weren't sure what was wrong with me. And I ended up going to another hospital a day later because it was getting worse. And when I got in there, they were almost ready to intubate me because I was struggling to breathe. I believe a normal male about my age should have right around 120 pounds of pulling force in their hands. I had 5 in each hand. And so they did a bunch of testing, and several days later, they came back and said, well, you have something called transverse myelitis, which is another autoimmune issue. And it's not a real common issue, but it is kind of similar to MS in the aspect that it is taking the mylar sheath off of the nerves throughout the body. And it caused my legs and arms to quit.
So the myelin sheath, which is covering all the nerves, is somehow being removed.
Body's
multiple
attacking
sclerosis,
itself.
it's right. And so this is affecting your ability to use your legs, arms, and then you're having this pain.
Yes.
So what did they recommend at that time?
Heavy amounts of drugs. So,
and which types of drugs were these? Like cortisone and steroids, or?
Well, to start with, they went pretty extreme to try and get my nervous system back jump-started. They first started with a spinal tap and MRIs to get the diagnosis correct. Once they had that, I don't know if you're familiar with what solumedrol is.
I am not. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. So if you got stung by a bee, for instance, they may give you prednisone, which would be like a 10 milligram dose, which in the steroid realm is, average to moderate. And then they would put you on a taper. Since my condition was so extreme, they were giving me 1,000 milligrams of solumedrol, which is a liquid version of prednisone, a day for quite some time intravenously. And then having to chase it with Ativan and a bunch of downers because it just kind of make you go crazy and lock you in your mind and body and not being able to move or do anything. So
were you on these drugs for about 4 years?
No, not quite. So the solumedrol IV injections, that was just while I was in the hospital in the emergency care. So they were injecting me with that. They were giving me 2 different kinds of muscle relaxers. They had me on 2,400 milligrams of gabapentin a day, which is a very high dose of a nerve blocker, anti-seizure medicines, and then they got into vitamins and pain meds and all that kind of stuff on top of it. When I got out of the hospital, I was on about 15 different medications.
And when you got out of the hospital, were you able to walk and move throughout your home and drive a car?
Very slowly, but yes. I wasn't able to drive a car for a while because my reaction time is one of the things they test for at the hospital to see how your reaction time is. Mine wasn't quite where it needed to be, so they're like, no driving for you, not to mention you're on all these medications. So
And
it was very intense for our family. I have a wife and I have 3 small children, and bless her heart for driving 50 miles one way to come see me at the hospital every day, you know, taking care of the businesses, taking care of our kids, and making sure they had what they needed. And it was a very trying time for the entire family.
and then you talk about being paralyzed. Did you continue to get bouts of that after this diagnosis?
So a lot of the medications that they put me on would kind of, so when the mylar sheath gets torn off, the nerves kind of short circuit, cause a lot of pain, and make limbs and muscle coordination and everything not work. Those medications did kind of help prevent that, but to the degree also that I couldn't remember my children's names some days.
Oh,
Gabapentin's a very, very strong nerve blocker, but it makes your vision blur, creates problems with memory, motor function as well. So I spent the next, well, let's see, I was in the hospital, then I was in a rehab to relearn to walk and get strength built up back in my arms and my legs. And then once I was home, it was, you know, a year and a half of just living in this daze of not knowing what's going on. Just, yeah, I really felt like a 90-year-old with dementia. I mean, it's really the best way to unfortunately describe it.
how was your, like, did you have hope for your future? How was your state of mind? Of course, you have this wonderful wife, you have these beautiful little children. How did your future look to you?
Very bleak, to be honest with you. Depression, anxiety. You know, I would go to the doctor and say, well, this is hurting or this is hurting. And instead of really looking into it in depth, they would say, okay, double your medication up, double your medication up, double, oh, we're going to add this medication now. So, I mean, and oh, we're going to add this antidepressant, we're going to add some anxiety meds. And pretty soon you're just kind of a corpse going through the motions, but internally you're just screaming and, you know, praying to God that something will change, something that will happen to help. And
Well, Travis,
you know,
it sounds like your prayer was answered.
it was.
Why don't you tell us
absolutely.
how
So
you came to the carnivore diet?
it's actually very interesting because my mother had been watching all of Dr. Baker's videos and was really inspired to try because she had some issues she was trying to help with. And she started sending me these videos and goes, you should really look at this. And, you know, the first one that she sent, I don't even know if I opened it immediately. I was like, there's nothing that's going to help me. You know, I'm on all this. And, you know, that state of mind being horrible. But finally, I opened it up and something just clicked with me when he was talking about why it's so important that your body gets this protein, why it's so important that you get rid of all these complex sugars and all this stuff that's really not helping you. Because one of the biggest problems with transverse myelitis is inflammation in the spine. Anything that causes inflammation in the spine radiates out through the entire body. So I said, you know, I finally came to this breaking point of I have nothing to lose. I have everything to gain. I need to be a better father. I need to be a supporter. I couldn't work, you know, so I've got to do something to get back control of my life. And these medications are just destroying me. So I said, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it for 30 days. If I don't have any success in 30 days, I'm not out anything in my span of my lifetime. And that's what I had to tell myself to really jumpstart myself to do this diet. Because it is not for the faint at heart that are just, you know, that like trying these little programs that come and go, you know, as time goes by. This is, I was looking for better health, and I got a lot more than better health. I got a whole body revitalization program out of this.
Such wonderful news. So tell us how you started. What did those first days and weeks look like in terms of food?
Absolutely. And I'll be the first to tell, the first week is the hardest week I've probably ever had in my life. You don't realize how addicted to carbs and sugars and those cravings. People don't realize how strong those are until you take those away. And So the first week was the first day was very good, but by day 2 or 3, I'm just panicking in my mind because my body is just telling me you need sugar, you need a carbohydrate, you need something. But by about day 4, my energy levels, I could not believe the energy levels I was having. I mean, I was waking up earlier than I had woke up in years and without an alarm clock. And as that progressed, my pain lessened and I started weaning myself off little by little, all these different medications I was on, much to this dismay of my doctor and what he advised me on. But I found that the fog by about week 2 was starting to go away and I could see clearer. I could think clearer. You know, I was telling you I was having trouble remembering names of my children and things and dates, and it was horrible. And all of a sudden this clarity just kind of washed over me. And by week 3, I decided to step on the scale and I was already down 10 pounds. And I was like, how in the world is that even possible? And by week 3, I wasn't hungry. Like I was in that first few days. My body was feeling better already. And then slowly but surely the medications came down, my weight came down, my blood sugar came down. And I started to see the potential of what this diet could do for me.
Just wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. I still get a little emotional just talking about it because it doesn't seem like it could be real. It is
very emotional.
It is. It was just, it allowed me to get my life back to, I have twin 5-year-olds and a 10-year-old, and keeping up with those children is the most difficult thing any parent can do because they're all redheaded boys and super active. So going from not being able to pick my children up and hug them to them riding my back around the house like I'm a horse is just the most wonderful thing in the world. It's absolutely amazing.
It must make your wife and children so happy to have you back and better than ever.
They got their dad back.
So tell me, they got dad back. Dad's back. Welcome back, Dad.
Yeah.
So did you start with beef? Did you start with beef, eggs, dairy, cheese, pork, everything, or?
So I don't do dairy. Dairy's just, I don't know if it's a complete lactose intolerant issue or not, but it's just never settled right in my stomach. So I don't do dairy to begin with, but I started off with doing a lot of hamburgers and steaks, but a lot of tuna. I ate a lot of fish. I would go get tuna steaks and grill.
Fresh tuna steaks. Okay, not
Yes.
Canned tuna.
Correct.
Fresh tuna steaks.
Yes. And my mom was telling me, she's like, you need to try this coffee where you put a little butter in it to help jumpstart your morning. And that has now been a ritual for almost a year. Every morning, don't miss it. It's how I get my brain neurons firing first thing in the morning to get up and get done. And I have enough energy that now I wake up between 2 and 3 every morning to start my day, every day, which is just unheard of.
And how many hours sleep are you getting?
On average, my body doesn't like it if I sleep more than 5 to 6. It runs optimally.
And so what is it's been a year. I guess you're just coming up on your year anniversary.
Yes.
And you went from having brain fog, exhausted on all of these medications, barely able to move, barely able to work. And now how many pounds did you lose total?
Well, let's see. I got on the scale this morning at 146 pounds and I started at 209.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And you wake up full of energy super early and have energy to do everything that you want to do.
Absolutely. I have a very physically demanding job now because I actually take a lot more pride in doing physical labor and exercise because I get more out of it for me now than I used to. So on average, I think my step meter counts somewhere around 10 to 12 miles a day.
Oh
and
my
that's
goodness.
normally under heavy load, and going from not being able to walk across my house to, 10, 12 miles a day is just incredible feeling. And I have people come up and ask me all the time, what's going on and how are you doing this? And they're just in disbelief.
So are you carrying food with you to work? Are you still a lot of tuna and beef? Is that?
My primary fixation is now on beef. I do eat a little bacon here and there, a little fish every now and again, but primarily I just deal with beef for the most part. I find that I feel the best after eating beef, personally. And honestly, when I eat, I am hungry and I eat. I mean, I eat a lot. And
how many pounds of animal meat are you eating a day, would you say?
Oh, depending on how my day was and what kind of physical exertions I had, I may eat 3 ribeyes for supper in a row.
Sounds like ShawnBaker there.
I love it. I feel the best after I wake up in the morning after eating that and giving my body really what it needs. And I've had several people come up and approach me, and I don't understand how you can eat meat all the time. It's so expensive. I sat down and calculated it, and there's a big misconception. This diet is cheaper than almost any diet on the market. It really is. I'm not stopping in every day to get pops and all this stuff at gas stations and junk food and buying, stuff at the local grocery store that's not has any nutrients. I'm not buying any of that. I'm just buying meat. And sometimes I only may eat once a day, but I eat a huge portion and then I'm fasting the rest of the time.
And is it natural for you to fast?
Very natural.
So you're listening to your hunger and responding to it. Then you eat to full satiety, and then Absolutely. Your brain has what it needs to have a nice, continuous fasted energy.
Absolutely. Some days, if the workload is considerably higher, I'll notice that I'll eat a little more that day, but then I will go to bed and I may not eat till supper time the next day because my body just naturally wants to fast. It had everything that it needed, and I go the whole day without being hungry or just going crazy. The only thing that I still substitute in my diet is coffee and tea.
Yep. Enjoy those.
That's the only thing I couldn't give up was coffee.
Right. Well, good. It doesn't seem to be having an adverse effect. So you were born, you were tested from birth with celiac. You had a slew of flare-ups and symptoms. Would you say what was related to celiac? You don't see those symptoms anymore?
Not at all. Not at all. And I used to have a huge problem with stomach bloating and just always feeling really sluggish. In this last year, I've maybe only felt bloated once, twice. I mean, it really, the stomach feels better. My mind is sharper and clearer. And I was looking to get my health back, but I gained as much mentally off of this diet as I did physically. It teaches you discipline, just like a martial art almost, in learning to control hunger, cravings. And no, you shouldn't pick up that cookie. That's probably not good for you, It teaches you so much, and it cleared up depression and anxiety. So I gained as much from the mental aspect of this diet as I did physically.
And then there was a whole slew of symptoms and pain and debilitation from this myelin disorder. And would you say 90% of those symptoms are gone, 100%?
I would say probably about 90 to 95%. If it is exceptionally hot out, and I get a little bit of maybe inflammation in the spinal column from overdoing it or hurting my back a little bit, I can still have a little bit of residual pain and stinging in the legs, but it's at a very minimum. It's very manageable. Normally, if I just go lay down and go to sleep with an ice pack, I wake up and I'm fine, so I've learned to manage that. So I'm not on any medications now, which is, praise God, that's just absolutely amazing. So the only thing that I substituted in is I substitute in a little vitamin C and just some basic vitamins to help with the diet, and that's it. Other than that, it is just meat.
Wonderful news. And have any family members joined you with eating more meat? Has it shifted how your wife and children eat?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So my wife had some of her own health complications. She was a type 2 diabetic, and it was getting a little worse. And you know, we sat down and we talked, and I said, you ought to try this. You know, there's this wonderful support system when you can do this diet with 2 people. You keep each other accountable. And that is very important, because if the people you surround yourself with aren't on the same page as you and your goals, it makes it very difficult to try to succeed. So she went on this and she dropped an immense amount of weight. And now she actually just had her labs tested a few days ago. There is no indicators of any kind of diabetes, and she feels absolutely amazing. She looks great. She feels great. It's been a wonderful year of transformation for our family. And my parents have gone on and stayed on this diet as well. You know, they'd started it a little bit before me, but they're still on it going, and they're doing wonderful, dropping weight, feeling better. It's been such a wonderful transformation. And then I have close friends that have come up to me and asked me about it, and I've kind of given them some of the steps that I took and the processes that I did, and I implemented a little bit of exercise at home here and there to help really speed up the process of dropping the weight. And they're doing it too. And one of my friends just messaged me a day or 2 ago and told me she was down 15 pounds in 2.5 weeks.
Wonderful
and feeling
news.
great. Feeling great.
That's amazing. So you're there spreading the word to your community. Absolutely. And just setting a great example with your radiant health. It's so wonderful, Travis. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today? What would you
Absolutely.
say to people who are struggling with immune related illnesses?
30 days to change your life. In the grand scheme of how big your life is and how your expectancy is, if you can commit 30 days to trying something like the meat diet, the carnivore diet, you have so much more to gain than you have to lose. You have nothing to lose. 30 days can show you what your future possibilities can be. And first off, I want to say I'm so thankful to Dr. Baker and other people in this field that are really pushing this and doing what they're doing to get this information out to people, because it is changing lives. I'm living proof of what it can do. And I'm so grateful to him and you guys there at MeatRx and what you do for the community to really support the people that need that support.
Thank you so much, Travis. So many people are going to benefit from your success story. Thank you for joining us here and sharing your beautiful transformational story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I was truly honored.
Thank you.